Sorry, I was just said good morning, Maine, without
I
my
was gonna
mic on.
say,
Well, anyway,
yeah.
good morning, Maine. This is Chuck Ellis, and you're watching the Muddy Waters podcast. As you all know by now, the Muddy Waters podcast exists to help the people of Maine better understand what's going on in our state. And not because I'm an expert in all things, but because I bring people on who know a little bit more than I do about a bunch of things, and we all learn along the way. And unfortunately, I would say the mainstream media, whose job it is to inform the people, does not do their job. And so as a result, we have these alternative ways in which people can learn about what's going on. And additionally, we want to highlight different candidates who are running for office as conservatives. I'll take people who are not conservatives because I think people may need to be informed, but definitely want to give our conservative voices a chance to let the people of Maine know who they are and why they're running. And that's why today we're fortunate to have with us gubernatorial candidate David Jones. Thanks for joining.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
So we're moving full steam ahead with this. We've got really a lot of wind in the sails, raising great money. Support seems to be there. I'm really excited about where I know we can take the state if we all work together. Regardless of who you are, I mean, what party you are, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. The thing that matters to me is that we agree on 7 out of 10 things. And if we don't band together as a group and we work in all these separate factions, then, they win and we lose. So, if we don't win, what happens.
Scary things happen,
You
right?
see what's happening in Augusta right now as a result of not winning. 3 seats. Makes a big difference.
No, it's so disheartening. I mean, I'm so thankful. I should say that the House and the Senate, the legislature are not in session because they can't do anything crazy right now.
Right?
It's just like it's been so painful, like trying to figure out how far they're going to go, and they just keep pushing the limit. And so we definitely need to get some conservatives elected. And so I'm thankful for all the people that are, choosing to stick their neck out there, spend their time, energy, effort, money, trying to help us win a conservative majority in the House, the Senate, and win the governor's race. So we definitely need to get a conservative in there, and we got a lot of people who are willing to help in that effort. So thank you for running. And so, David, I think a lot of people, obviously you've been going on the Ray Richardson show for years, and so a lot of that
18 years now. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. So a lot of that crew knows who you are. It's interesting. There are a couple of different ecosystems within the conservative movement.
Sure,
there's the older generations, and they tend to stick. They listen to a lot of the talk radio, and then the younger generation, which is more social media, TikTok. Some TikTok, but X is a big one, and so some of the people who probably already know who you are, but I think there's a lot of people who probably don't that will watch this. So love to give you an opportunity to kind of let people know who you are, where you come from, and kind of how you came to this place of wanting to run for governor in a state that Trump lost by 6.5%.
But he also won this second district by 71%, right? Yeah. So it was. So let me say this: there's two parts of Maine. There's 2 Maines, as we all know. But I'll tell you a little bit about David Jones. I started my life right out of high school. Started my own company. I was in the construction business. I learned how to finish drywall. That was my first mastery, and then I went ahead and got into carpentry and concrete, and I hired a couple more guys, and then next thing you know, I had 30, 40, 50, 100, 200, 500. I got up to almost 1,100 people. All right, so and I built high rises, malls, and shopping centers, but I did it all with hard sweat. There was no idea of anything handed to David Jones. I just fought tooth and nail for everything that I had. And, the only difference between me and my buddies is that I went to the bank and they went to the bar. So, I just kept my head above water. Not that I'm a saint, look, I was a young guy and, doing well in life. And, of course we had good times. But, the bottom line is in this country, anybody can do it. And if I can do it, I know there's plenty of Mainers out there that could do it as well. I've been encouraging young people my entire life to get involved, whether it's in politics or learn a trade. We're not taught the skills, the life skills that you need to survive. And, that was the only thing I knew. I mean, I took vocation training in high school, and, auto mechanics, metal shop, wood shop, anything I could that I could do with my hands. And, as a result, I could go anywhere in the country, even to this day, and earn a living if I had to, using my hands. And so these things are really important. Younger people today just, I don't know. I understand you want to do data, you want to be on a computer, you want to do this, but the bottom line is we need plumbers, electricians, and carpenters, and mechanics, and air conditioning guys, and we just need people to do trades, and they're great paying jobs. The opportunity is there for anyone that really wants to put in the time. So I built my life around the construction business, real estate business. I now own F.O. Bailey Real Estate, and it's Maine's oldest continuous running company. It's been around for 206 years now.
Wow.
I'm the fourth owner in 200 years, so it's not
Ooh.
something that changes hands readily. It's also the second oldest auction house in the entire United States, and I think there's only 72 other companies in the country that can say that they're 206 years old. So it's
Wow.
not like we're growing on trees, but Ethel Bailey's been around a while. I mean, you look at 1819, 1 year before Maine became a state. So I've always had my hands in real estate, and as a result, I love taking nothing, turning into something in the construction business. That's what you do. You take a sand lot and turn it into a 30-story building or a resort, or it's whatever you can do. So been married now for 40 years, and I have 6 kids, 3 boys, 3 girls. One I adopted from Costa Rica, and I've got soon to be 8 grandchildren. Coming in October, my 8th. And I spend an inordinate amount of time with my family. I just, it's just why I'm doing it. I want my kids to stay here. They're all here. The grandkids are here. I see them every weekend. I got, kids all around me, and I just absolutely adore the minds, the brilliance of young people. I've always, like I said, encouraged young people to get involved in learning a trade, or and if you had somebody like me that was in trouble, in school, then you're saying, okay, what can I do to capture this energy? And so that's what I do. If I have a young man or woman that wants to better themselves and they're willing to put in the time, I'll spend all the time I can to make them all they want to be and all they can be. So in a nutshell, that's David, a family guy, businessman, and I love what I do, and I love my family. It's
awesome.
great,
And I don't know if you highlighted this, but I think I remember, because I listened to great interview. If people want to learn more, I don't want to rehash absolutely everything that happened in the interview with Matt Gagnon, but you had a great interview with Matt Gagnon, and I learned some. So you started that business in Florida, and then you moved to Maine at what point?
Yeah, I've been here now. Let's see, we bought a house in Bryant Pond 40 years ago, and then I moved here full time in 27 years ago. I bought a place up in Emden, Maine, Bingham, if you know the area at all. It's a beautiful area. It's right on the Kennebec River.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful spot. And ever since I've been here, I just have this, desire to make things better. When I moved to Bingham, I, bought a lot of the old buildings and fixed them all up one by one. And I did it myself. I mean, it's like I was scraping and painting and banging nails and reputting windows or whatever it took to restore that historic value of the properties that I owned. And we made Main Street look a lot better. And it just brought it to life. It was like going from black and white to color, right? All of a sudden, it was a beautiful spot. And in the town of Bingham, there's a big moose. I bought this giant moose, and it's standing there right on the corner. If anybody drives through on their way to Jackman or up to God's country, then they pass the moose that was put there by me.
Awesome. That's beautiful. Jackman, I'm originally from the Athens area, so I used to travel up there.
Sure.
I played basketball against Valley and Jackman and stuff like that growing up. And beautiful, beautiful area. There's actually, like, going into Jackman, as you come up over the hill, there's a place where it's like they have a nice little turnoff. It's there because if they didn't have it there, people would crash looking at the view instead of driving.
It's so beautiful.
Just a beautiful place.
Well, you got Moxie Falls. I'm in the real estate business, so I travel all over the state constantly. I go from further north to further south to east to west, and I've put hundreds of thousands of miles on my cars, but over the years, but I still haven't seen it all. It's a beautiful place, and that area in particular is really tugs on my heartstrings. it's a really, and the fishing's great too. I mean, the trout, and there's still hidden ponds, and there's still things that you can jump in, hike through the woods, and have a heyday of catching the fish of your dreams. They still exist. You just got to work a little harder.
Yeah, no.
But if you lived in Athens, right? So
Yeah.
and you play basketball, did you say?
Yeah.
So you remember the Giberson twins, the and Bingham,
The
time Golden Globe winners. I mean, it was the Gibersons and one other kid.
There Nick Pilaw, and then it was, what were the last names of the? Trying to think. Hartwell. There were a couple of different sets of twins that played and did really well up at Valley Bingham. I played against the Hartwell twins. We were in the same grade.
Oh, okay, sure.
And they're the ones with, and then there was a kid that was a year older than them named Nick Pilot. Year older than us, I should say. Pilot played at I think he might have played Division 1, maybe Division 2, but the Hartwell twins, they never lost a game in high school. Literally never lost a game.
With these guys, they made they were on the front page of Sports Illustrated.
I thought that. I thought it was the Hartwell twins.
Was it the Hartwells?
I think it was, because I remember they were. I know that they were featured in ESPN or Sports Illustrated because of their somewhere around 100-game winning streak or something.
Littlefield was the coach.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I think that's
And then maybe that's. I'm getting my names confused. It's been a while, 25 years, right? I mean, you think about it. Now they're, I guess, one's a heart surgeon, the other one's a doctor, or they went down to medical. I think so. It's good to see that people from rural Maine can succeed. And those guys were playing basketball since they were knee high to a grasshopper, with one another. So they're in synchronicity. I tried to get them to play Deering. During because they were A and then they were D, right? So and they wouldn't play. I mean, it was the Hartwells.
Skowhegan played them, I know, because I actually watched in an exhibition game them against, I think, the year that Skowhegan was state champions, and I think I watched the game live in person in Bingham, and Skowhegan barely won in overtime kind of thing. It was so.
All right. Well, Deering wouldn't take it on. I tried to get a friend of mine you went to Deering, and I said, they wouldn't take the challenge, but it would have been an exhibition game, of course, right? But it was. But no, I love rural Maine. I mean, you think about Maine. You drive up, and people drive up through the they call it Old Canada Road. I wanted to call it Moose Alley, but they named it Old Canada Road, and you go up into the Moscow, and you see the moose all the time. They're around there just hanging out. And people come to Maine. What's the two things they think about in Maine? Moose and lobster, right? That's it, right? I mean, moose and lobster. And so, I love them both. I mean, that's why I put that moose up in town. It's representing. They don't have to travel so far. They can stop and get their picture taken with that one, not have to worry about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things you mentioned, I think, is just I want to highlight on, because I think it's one of the things that's lost in my generation and younger, which is you talk about how people want to, they don't want to do the work with their hands, so to speak. They want to do the work on the computer and IT, and not only, I think there are a number of things that are lost, is that we don't need as many of those people, especially as now AI is entering the world.
AI is
really transformed.
I'm messing around with it now. It's pretty interesting.
You really can't not use it at this point if you're trying to stay competitive, because it'll allow you to get so much more work done just by utilizing this tool. And so it's hard to to not use it. So I use it for a number of things as well. But what's interesting, societally, we need more people who are blue collar workers. We need more people who are working with their hands. And I also think that there's boys tend to get in more trouble, I think, because the education system, the way that it's structured, is one that doesn't fit well with boys. Boys are I want to be out doing stuff. I want to do stuff with my hands naturally. And so sitting in a classroom for however many hours a day listening to somebody talk at you is not really something that boring. I think is it's very boring. I think it's probably boring for everybody, but particularly for boys who just want to be running around doing something.
They have higher energy level, I guess, in some, when it comes to that.
But on top of all of that, because I think that's all, and I think like doing more like, working with your hands, trades type of things are more work, make more sense for a lot of guys. But also there's this element that, like, when I remember, and I'm one of these lazy people who does stuff on computers for the most part, doesn't do a lot of stuff myself and building, and there's a huge additional cost associated with that, because everything that needs to be done, I have to pay somebody to do it. Whereas my dad, when he was growing up, when I was growing up, he was always like trying to fix the car himself rather than going down and spending $1,000 to get work done in the car. He's like, let me go out and buy the part and I'll do it myself. And I remember holding the light for him, and that's basically all I did. But like that element has been lost in our society, and the cost associated with that to everybody's budgets. This is why people need to make more money and they need to do this. And I think I think we need more people to engage in the trades, and it should be part of, like, when you're going through high school. I think guys should be participating in learning how to build stuff. Even in my day, I remember we still have this chair. Like, I graduated from high school in 2002, and in that year I built an Adirondack chair.
Nice.
It still exists. It's at my brother's house.
And you can look at it. So you made it, right? You took raw pieces of wood and you made it into something. And that ability to use your hands and your brain in conjunction and come up with something, and either put a building in the ground or build a chair or whatever it is you want to do. Those skills are so important. And not only does it, look, you may not end up being a carpenter. You may not end up being an electrician or a plumber, but you have those skills. And then you get married, and say you are a lawyer, and I have a lot of lawyer friends, and but half of them have talent, hand skills, life skills, and half of them do not. And the ones that don't, they just, I got to call this guy for that. The ones that do, just hey honey, I got a honeydew job for you, and the wife gives them a list, and they're off and running to the races. So it's really important that you know these things. And I think what it does, outside of the fact of having a skill, is it just makes you think more. Your thought processes are different than if just looking at it and it being alien to you. But it's so important. The vocational training is in school. I mean, we had all of it. I mean, and there was no stigma. I mean, right now there's a stigma if you want to be an auto mechanic. Well, hey, I'll tell you what, I'm paying auto mechanics on my car when I have to get it fixed a lot of money. And I mean, I think it's $250 at the car dealership.
At the dealership, oh yeah, probably.
Yeah,
per hour.
And you look at plumbers are getting $1.50, $150 an hour, right, to do their work. So you look at that and you figure, all right, so you bring a guy in for a day, and you're going to spend $1,200 to fix your plumbing when you could have done it yourself if you knew how to replace a toilet or fix a leaky faucet, or I mean, these things they're just life skills, and I think that's been lost. And there's, in Japan, they lost all their farmers. Nobody wanted to farm anymore. Then they became totally dependent on outside sources. We need to be dependent upon ourselves, and I think that the way our society is today, like I said, it's a stigma, being a tradesman, but to me, I'm proud that I can do it. I'm proud that I learned that way. I'm proud that I can still pick up a hammer and outswing, 50-60% of the guys, So, when you have those skills, they're with you forever. And no matter what happens in your life, or where you go, or where life takes you, because, life is something that happens while you're making plans for the future, right? But, you get out there and something goes, you have a skill that you can fall back on. You can support yourself, your family. I mean, it's just amazing. And but to see that loss is scary. It's really scary to me.
It is.
Opportunity is the most important thing in the world.
Yeah, and it gets into, we could get into some topics, and I do want to get into those. It's kind of branching into education, but before we jump into that, like, so you, from what I understand, because again, I'm newer to the Maine political scene. I've been involved and engaged since about 2022. I like to let people know that, yes, I'm one of those people. And unfortunately, there are too many of people like this who didn't really understand how state politics work, even in terms of like how they functionally operate.
Yeah.
The state government's a mirror image of the federal government with the House, the Senate. We have our own Supreme Court. And then the governor is essentially plays the role of the executive branch, which is the president nationally, right? We've got this mirror image. I didn't know that.
They
I
don't
didn't know
teach
who
that
my
in school anymore.
They
I mean,
don't.
civics is so important, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the idea to understand that why the Constitution was written, how it was written, the Declaration of Independence, how this all came about, the freedoms that we were given, and then to systematically and incrementally give up those freedoms to government it scares me to no end. And I think that I'm glad that you're involved. At 2022, I mean that's just 3 years ago. But
Yeah.
look, you're all now the chairman of the Cumberland County Party because you raised your hand, right? And we need people to raise their hand, and we need people to get their butts off the couch and go vote. I don't understand why people don't vote. I have never missed an election. I vote constantly. All my kids, the day they turned 18, I took them to register to vote. Now, when voting day is here, I'm not sending emails to my family. Go vote, go vote, go vote, go vote.
Yeah.
How hard is it? And you really don't have to wait till the voting day. You can vote for 30 days prior. And everybody in Maine, I don't care where you live, you buy your town hall at least once 30 days prior to the election. Right?
Easily.
So why can't you just take 10 minutes out of your time, walk in, talk to the town clerk, get your absentee ballot, fill it in, seal the envelope, sign it, and hand it to them?
Well, I think part of the challenge, and so is that we've been trained the opposite way of how we should understand civics. So talking about how people don't understand what's going on is that I remember when I went door to door, I went to this one guy's house, very strong conservative, somebody we want voting in absolutely every election, right? And his response to me was, because this was 2022, right? Not a presidential year. He's like, I only vote in presidential election because that's when my vote matters the most. I'm like, that's actually the complete opposite of the truth, right? Like it matters that year, absolutely, but it's actually the complete. So, and this is where you look at voter turnout. Voter turnout is always higher in a presidential election because we have trained society to believe that the only thing that really matters is who the president is, or who the state, who our U.S. Senate representatives are. Where the reality is, the people who have the most significant potential to impact our life are the school board and the city council, and then our statewide. And again, going back to things that I didn't know, did I know that Maine had its own constitution before 2021, 2022? I don't know that I did. Right? Yeah. So there are all these things
in
that
this
people
case,
don't know.
The governor of Maine doesn't really want to honor the Constitution, right?
Well,
our Secretary of State doesn't honor the Constitution. They want to usurp the Constitution and bring in ranked choice voting when it says in the Maine Constitution the governor's race must be done by plurality, period. Yep. You want to change it? Yep. Go ahead. You know how to change it. You need 2/3 vote. Go for it. But, they're not going to get it. So, I mean, go ahead. Continue. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, anyway, there's a part of why this podcast exists, right? Is because part of the problem is that people don't know what's going on. Because in addition to the fact that we train people that way, all of the mainstream media is pushing people to look at Washington, and if anything, it's maybe at the governor here in the state of Maine, but it's very little about what's actually going on. And so people are uninformed. So you make the comment, it's really easy, show up and vote. Well, the challenge is to know who to vote for, to know what are the important issues, because people are not being informed and are not being educated. And so they feel like, what's the point? Why am I going to go and show up? I would imagine, like, I have family members who I tried to encourage to vote, told me they voted, but I know that they didn't vote. And I think it was because they didn't know what to do, right? They didn't like, and I think there's a bit of a, kind of not a belief that like their vote doesn't matter, or it's not going to make any difference.
That's so true, Chuck.
All that kind of stuff.
I don't think their vote matters.
Yeah, and I think it obviously does. And one of the statistics, I'm a Christian, and so that I brought up, actually, I think it was on the Ray Richardson show. Not yet. What day is it? Monday, and was the number of Christians nationally. There's somewhere around 30 million evangelical Christians who either don't regularly vote or are not even registered to vote. And it's like, imagine if they just voted.
Oh,
like the impact,
absolutely.
right? And so I think we need to convince people and encourage people that your vote actually does matter. And we see it at school board levels when votes are decided by a couple of
Where the
votes,
money's
and
spent. It's where the
it
money's
was
spent. It's where your tax dollars
yeah
go. I mean,
yeah
years ago, I was livid. The National Education Association said that the average cost per student was about $7,400 per kid, or 74 or 35 or something like that. And then the town of Falmouth wanted to increase their the cost to 11,600, and they were at like 9,000. They were already a couple $1,000s over. And I put together a spreadsheet. I walked in, I handed it out to everybody. And this is several years ago. I walked in, handed them, and I get my 5 minutes that they allow you, right? And then I walk up, and you could hear a pin drop because the room was filled by the people that were going to support the school budget. I was the only one there in talking against it. And I said, look, you look at this is statistics. We're already 2,000 some odd dollars over that, over what the NEA said it should be. You guys want to go another $2,000 over that. I said, and I said, I got a simple solution. And I pointed at the assistant superintendent. I said, we don't need her. Fire her.
Yeah,
And they were.
I'm sure that went over well.
If somebody could burn through you with their eyes. I mean, they were all looking at me like they wanted to kill me. And I said, look, numbers don't lie, people do. And so that when I saw this, happening back then, I think that was like in 2000 something, 2002 or something, maybe. Well, it was a while ago. And so when I saw it happening, I said, I got to be involved. I got to be more involved. I got kids. I want them to stay here. I want them to, we lose our brain trust. People leave our state all the time.
Absolutely.
Why? Because there's no opportunity.
Too expensive. No right? Opportunities. Yep.
Right. And so I want to be known as the opportunity governor. I want to be the guy that gets government the hell out of the way. I want to reform our government into a point where, whatever they spend their money on, it will be justified. You got to look at how they spend our money. We went from $7.5 billion to $11.6 billion in 7 years. Yeah. All right, 65% increase. Are we 65% better than we were then? No.
No.
Right. Yeah. Are our roads better? Are our bridges better? Is our education? We're 49th in the country, I think. So you're like, why? What are we paying all this money for? Who's profiting? I always say, follow the money. Bottom line, follow the money. Who's profiting from these programs and these things, that they come up with? They expand government. They put another 120,000 people on Maine care, right? I mean, come on. Able-bodied, able-minded. All right. You qualify? No. Get a job, right? Yeah. So, and this governor she's happy that she's put 128,000 people on me.
Oh yeah, no, very, very proud of the fact that we're now up to like 425,000 approximately people on Maine care, like 1/3 of the population of the state approximately.
I'm proud of that. Oh, come on, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
and she touts it, Chuck. She touts it like, because this is a badge of honor. I think it's an absolute disgrace. Look, I don't want people to not have coverage, but I want them to work. Like, I worked. Nobody's given David Jones anything. I've worked for everything I have. You've worked for everything you have. Why do we need government's a problem? It is definitely the problem. They think
it's a leech. Government is a leech. It doesn't produce anything. It just leeches off of the people. That's what it is. So,
why do people depend on government? Last thing I ever wanted in my life was government. Just don't. I want to live free or die. I mean, that's my whole.
Well, it gets at a big difference. And so I'm going to give this to you for free and anybody else who wants to use it. But I really think that the Republican Party, one of the things that we offer, and I think we should shout this from the rooftops, is like in terms of values, the difference between the Republican Party and the Democrat Party is the Democrat Party, in a guise to have you be taken care of and make sure that your needs are met, wants you to become dependent on the government. They don't want you to be free. Sure. They want you to be under their control. And so they'll offer all of this stuff, but they won't, but you're stuck on it. Like once you get in the system, it's so difficult to get off. I think you talked, and this is something I've been saying for a while, so I really appreciated you talking about it on Matt Gagnon's show, about the idea of like, there's no off ramp, because it's
there is no off ramp.
It's a
cliff.
all
or nothing. Right. I talked about like a 12-step program, right? Where you don't lose all your benefits, but it helps you get yourself crawl out of the hole or wherever you are to get to a better place, and you're not standing there bewildered. I've seen people come up and say, well, I want to get a job, but I can't work anymore than 20 hours a week, and I can only get paid this. If I get paid more, I'm going to lose my benefit. Is that what it was designed for? No, absolutely not. My family was poor. My mom is a waitress. My dad was a bartender mechanic, right? And so there was times they were tough. So we would get our Christmas presents from the fire department, or go get the cheese and the powdered milk. I know what it was like to not have money, right? Yeah. And so, but my mom and dad were proud people, and they worked not only one job, two jobs, but sometimes three jobs. They had 5 kids. They didn't have a lot of money, so they had to do better. And people get insulted when I say, well, look, if you can't make your money at one job, get 2 jobs. You can't make it with 2, get 3 jobs. That's just the way it is. And if you don't like the trade you're in, go, learn another trade that makes you more money. Minimum wage is tough, but raising the minimum wage doesn't do anything. It's to drive us deeper down the hole. Raising the pay scale doesn't do anything but devalue our dollar, because everything goes up accordingly. And so,
and more goes to the government as well in that scenario.
Oh yeah, right? that's a given. Now they want to have tax on taxes, and they pretty much have tax on taxes, and sometimes tax on taxes, right? So right. You pay your tax when you pay your income tax at the end of the year, but then you got to pay your road tax, your gas tax, your excise tax. Now they have a tax proposed in Portland to come up with a vacancy tax. So have you seen that?
I heard. I don't know if it passed or not, but they're talking about it.
Poor guy that's invested in your city, his building's empty, and yet you want to penalize him for it being empty because of the policies that you put into place. We just have to simplify things. That's all. Yeah. And the only way we're going to do this is if we all work together. I'm looking forward to this primary, because look, there's going to be a lot of great ideas put out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one thing is we Republicans have to know is that if we don't win, we lose. And if we lose this time, I've heard it for years, over and over. This if we don't win, it's over. It's over. So this time, after seeing what they've done in this past legislature, sanctuary state, 8.94 income tax, boys and girls sports. Where do I go? They've given us so much to run on that common sense people will put their arms around it. I don't care who you are. You're Republican, Democrat, unenrolled. You cannot support these kind of things in your life. It's just not sustainable, and it's not realistic.
No, absolutely. I think they've given us so much, and that if we aren't able to win in this election, then will we ever be able to? I think that's the question, right? And I think that we can too. I think we need to solidify around. We need to work together. I think one of the things that I'll say for people listening is, like, complaining about the GOP is not the answer. If you're concerned and you don't think they're doing enough, who cares what they're doing? Get involved and help in some way, rather than like passing the buck. I think this is one of the problems we do too often. I've noticed this here in Maine. There are a lot of people that are conservative that are frustrated about how things are, but I think they just kind of sit back and are like, well, the GOP needs to, the GOP needs to, the GOP needs to. Well, guess who the GOP is? Are you a registered Republican? Okay, you're the GOP. You bear responsibility. Are you involved in your city committee? Are you involved in your county committee? Are you involved in the state? If you're not involved, you really don't have anything that you can say. You have a part to play, and this is how representative government works. We all have to be involved. We can't sit back and say, Right. This is an experiment of we the people governing, and it doesn't work if we don't actually all participate. Now, not everybody can participate to the same level, but we can. And so I do think we can win. We have to work together. I think one of the things we have to be careful about, and I think we will in this crowded primary, is making sure that we don't damage one another in a way that harms whoever ends up winning the primary. But I want to go back to like what I was kind of juxtapositioning.
Let's just stay on policy. Let's get the personalities. Policies with these people. Like, when you go into a primary, people like to come in and start shredding each other. I'm not, listen, I'm going to use the 11th commandment of Ronald Reagan. Thou shalt not talk ill about any other fellow Republican. That's where I'm not going to. Let the people make up their mind. My ideas are great. If I'm the guy that you want to be your next governor, great. If I'm not, great. If there's somebody better, let's go for it. And I'll support that person. I'm all about winning. I'm all about making sure that whoever is the next governor of the state of Maine has their head on straight, is going to go in there and do what they promised to do. They're not going to get amnesia when they leave once they win the election and say, well, I changed my mind. Well, one thing about David Jones, if I say yes, it means yes. If I say no, it means no. There's no gray in my world. Black and white's my favorite color, and there's a reason for it. I just think we can't have blurry lines. We have a president now who's really stood up and fought against all odds to become the president of the United States. He set the groundwork. I think people were motivated. I know I am. I was motivated, in 16 when I saw it. So. We're on a path, and if we go down that path and we do it right, we can win this and we can change. And I tell people, if you agree with me on 7 out of 10 things, vote for me. If you agree with me on 10 out of 10 things, go see a psychiatrist. Right? It doesn't work, right? But look, the bottom line is there's common sense approaches to everything, and and I think if we just appeal to people's common sense and their wants and needs, and we can win this election. We can win.
I agree, and I think there are. I actually have come up with a list of my own. So one thing I want to say, because we got sidetracked because talking about like getting people stuck on the system and what the Democrats' solution is, which is make you under theirs. Our solution is we actually want to empower people, right? That's the idea. Amen. We want people to not need
teach them how to fish.
Right. We want people to not need the government. If they don't need the government, if we can get them to the point where they're self-sufficient without the government, that's awesome. Then they're free, right? They don't have to be dependent on all this crap. So we are the party of empowerment. So I created some nice little bumper stickers, right? So these are like some issues that I think these are issues I think we win on for sure, which is protecting rural sports and spaces, reopening Maine for business, restoring public safety, lowering energy costs, and fixing Maine schools. So I think we have a path to victory here in the state of Maine, and we just need to band together, work together, and go from there. But what are so obviously one of the things that I actually didn't list in there, because there are many things that the Democrats are failing in, but I think you have some expertise in given your work that you've done for your entire career. One of the biggest problems that we face here in the state of Maine is housing. How do we fix the housing problem? We're I think 50 to 80,000 housing units shy of what we need for our current population, I'm told.
86,000 to be exact.
Okay,
so
there we go.
You think about that. We're 86,000 homes short for what we have and what's required now. It could grow. It should grow. But why aren't we building? Because the towns and the governments, these local governments, get in the way of progress. They put up so many roadblocks. It's unreal. I was talking about it this morning on the show with Ray about I have a property down in Scarborough. It's 25 acres of really great property. But now that the state of Maine, in their infinite wisdom, they built the Maine Turnpike. And when they built the Maine Turnpike, they diverted all this water over to my client's property, and they created what's called low value wetlands, right? So in order to build on that land, we've got to pay a get out of jail free card of $208,000 an acre. And we got to do it and go through all kinds of other rigorous approvals in order to get to the approval. So you're going to spend, it's 20 acres of land. You have to pay $208,000 a piece, $4 million that you got to give to the state of Maine. They created the problem. It's their problem. They're penalizing my client, and they want us to pay the get out of jail free card. They should be paying us. Right? What they should do is just get the hell out of the way. Let us sell it. Let us build it and be done with it. What does giving them that money do other than line their pockets? It's all it's all about. So that's just one instance. There's so many other things that have happened over the years that I've, and it's my background. We used to build 500 or 1,000 houses at a time, 2,000 units at a time, whatever. And people say, well, that seems a little crazy. Well, no, that's what we did. And that's why people were moving to Florida. Because it was affordable. When you build in volume, things are less expensive. And if you get rid of the regulations and the permit fees and the impact fees and everything else that they come up with to try and stop us from developing, then, who pays for it? The consumer. Or the average price of a home in the state of Maine is $425,000. Now at 8% interest, or 7% interest right now, we've got a little bit break on that. It's going down a little bit, but it should go down. It needs to go down at least another point. But so people can't afford it. The payment is more than they make. Disproportionate to what their salaries are. So in order to build, and we got to cut the red tape. Maine is one of the 3 states in the United States of America. It's a constitutional right, according to the Maine Constitution, to protect your property. Right, we have property owners' rights. People are not aware of it, but now organizations like the DEP in the state of Maine and town governments have trampled on those rights. I have property. I have a property here in Falmouth that I was shocked to find out I have to do what I have to do anything with it, and it's 50 acres of land, and they want me to only use 15 of it and put the rest in conservation. Like, it's all dry land. What the hell? Why? Who you're going to commandeer my property? Now, the problem is that they have control. All right. So you get all these wallflowers that have been up there all these life, and now they have a little bit of power, and they come up with these insane ideas. And you look at what the makeup of these town councils are and the planning boards. They're anti-growth, but they came here from away. So, the idea that you come from away and you want to make it everything that you ran away from with the lordship over the masses, which is basically what they want to do. It's scary to me. I always say, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. And for Mainers have long been, very protective of their property and their property rights. But now they've upset the balance. The balance of power is in their favor. And so until we get them out of the way and we make it so that people can afford to build and they can afford to buy, right? Because every single cost that you pay, every tax, every fee, no matter what it is, transmits to who? The consumer, right? So now, how do you fix it? Get rid of the regulations and oversight. That's ridiculous. Nobody wants to destroy it.
I think you fix it by more government-owned housing. That's really efficient, right?
Good luck with that. Right? What's those words that Reagan said? We're the words you fear the most. So don't worry, we're here to help.
Yeah,
right?
I'm with the government and I'm here to help.
Those I'm with the government. We're here to help. I mean, I would run out of Rome so fast you couldn't see it. I'd be like streak, But it's insane to see us be where we are.
Well, and, it goes back to the housing. Yeah, sorry. I was just going to say that the housing thing that I was joking about is like, we're talking about affordable housing, and they're talking about affordable housing. When they talk about affordable housing, it's you can come rent from the government, or we'll help you pay. Like but like you're still under the guise of the government. It's not home ownership, right? We're talking about home ownership. We want to get people into homes so they can build equity, they can build value for their future. Really big, really stark difference, and also. Like I'm so tired of people. I don't understand how people just don't have the cognitive function to see that anything that the government does, they run terribly inefficiently, and they spend way more money than they need to spend for just about everything that they do. And so, why in the world would you not want a free market option, which is much more cost effective than a government option? But that's a whole nother story.
Well, affordable housing, that's a joke. It's not affordable. Right? It's subsidized housing, what it is.
Right.
You're subsidizing with what? Taxpayer money, bottom line, right? So, I always say, if you have a good product, I don't care what it is, or a good service, then the market's going to say to you, hey, I like that service or I like that product and I'm going to buy it, right? So, that's the way it should work. That's the way capitalism works. Subsidizing all these things just drives me right out of my mind. I've never taken a penny from government. I don't want anything from them, except for just a pass. See you later. And so I think what you really have to think hard about this, because I see all this, affordable housing. We're going to designate 20% of the units. A guy goes in, he wants to build an apartment building, and they want to designate 20% of the units as affordable housing, subsidized housing. I mean, look, if you can't afford to live there, you shouldn't live there. Bottom line.
Yeah.
I mean, if that property is worth more money and the person owns it, should be able to. That's what capitalism is about. You don't limit, success. You don't sit there and put these clouds over, projects that could be successful on their own 2 feet. And then, like I heard about the arguments about people, with the rent controls. I mean, nothing bothers me more than, the idea that they want to control the property. It's government controlling your property. You own it.
Yeah.
You bought it. You maintain it. You insure it. And they tell you how much rent you can charge. Right?
Yeah.
Think about that. Think about what that is. What they are doing is commandeering people's property. Right? And they're doing it in a way, well, we care about the downtrodden. I care a lot about people who don't have opportunity in their life. But there's a reason they don't have opportunity in their life. And let's solve the reason instead of subsidizing their existence.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the other things, so a couple of things I want to touch on because they're important to me and I think to a lot of people is one of them has to do with like how do we address like towns, but the other has to do with I've got a couple of farmers that are people that I've talked to as I've been out going door to door, and they have a bunch of farmland, and they I don't think they would be opposed to selling some of their farmland. The problem is that it's been under the farmland
tree growth
for forever. So in order for them to be able to sell the property, they would have to like essentially reconstitute it and then pay all of the taxes that they would have owed if this property was designated non-farmland or non-woodland. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's like, and it just seems like the cost that they would have to endure to be able to sell makes it not worth it.
No, that could be solved. Okay. And so, we deal with tree growth all the time, and people have a piece of property. They bought it and grandparents bought it. They gave it and now they want to sell it and they want to pay for college tuition or whatever it is. And it's been a tree growth or, on the farmland act. So the buyer will end up paying that. That's in your price. Right. So what we do is we disclose that, okay, this property is in tree growth. And it's been in. This is what it's going to cost to get it out. This is the selling price, and in addition, you pay. And then it's a negotiating point between the seller and the buyer.
It seems like how long they've had it in there, to them, it's like cost prohibitive. Like it's not, they wouldn't be able to get much to make it worth it for them to sell because of how much of taxes they would have to pay. I can have them have a conversation with a real estate agent. I know.
I know a real estate agent.
But that was something that came into my mind because they've complained
it's
about
important.
it multiple times. And
I mean,
that
owning your home,
especially right now, we should make it easier for like what we need in order to have more housing is we need more land that we could designate for housing. And so we've got some out there, but people are reluctant to sell because of, we've got some out there.
84% of the state of Maine is covered in trees. 84%. 84%.
Yeah.
Do the math.
But when there's like all these excessive costs associated with being able to free that land up to be able to build on, that creates that's another additional cost that gets in the way of us being able to address this problem. The other thing that you kind of mentioned
that needs to be overcome.
Yeah. And the other thing that you mentioned that I think is absolutely true, but I have concerns about is like local regulations getting in the way. And so my concern, like, I thought about this a lot because when I ran, housing was one of the issues that I was talking about this last election cycle. And so I was looking at it and I was like, I think a big part of the problem to additional housing is the local regulations. But one of the things that's great about America is that the local is where you get the most power and control, and we don't want the state to usurp local control. And so, what's this? No. How do we at a state level? How do you, as governor, help address that problem and get municipalities to shift their policies without usurping their authority?
Well, I don't. I think they've usurped the authority of the landowner. Right, so town government.
That's actually
bottom line.
That's
they have.
Point.
They've overstepped their boundaries in so many cases, and rules are rules. And so what they do is they get a group of people on the planning board in any specific town, and then this is their mindset, and they go ahead and implement these rules. They went ahead, I guess it was maybe 15, 20 years ago, they made all the towns come up with a comprehensive plan for the town. Well, the bottom line is this. One, we own those properties. It's our property. Why should the laws in Falmouth be different than the laws in Yarmouth and Cumberland and Cape Elizabeth and Saco and Kittery? Why can't all the rules of building and owning land in Maine be the same? Period. Right? So that at least then you know what you're getting into. And the idea that they come in and they implement these comprehensive plans that limited the value and the ability to use that land that was obviously bought as an investment is it's horrible. Look, I own land, but I'm busting my butt to get every piece of property I own. And when I go into the town, I got to stand there hat in hand and say, "Oh, can I please, Mr. Town Person, do this with my property?" And they're like, "Well, no, first we're going to beat you up and hit you over the head with a baseball bat and drag you out in the backyard and throw you in the dumpster. And then if you can come back from that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to, maybe let you put one house on that." Or, I mean, it's absurd, of course. It's crazy. But the bottom line is that when you walk through that door and you're not in the business, you're walking in there and you're at the mercy and it's of these people that are sitting in the other side of that counter, and you're trying to come up with a plan to the highest and best use for your property, and they're doing everything they can to limit you. I think we need one set of rules straight through the board through the entire state of Maine. I think the towns have usurped our rights as property owners.
That's a really good point. Obviously, if we have a constitutional right and the towns are essentially violating that, then I think it is appropriate. Obviously, trampling is. And I generally speaking, like I understand. I like the idea that we as towns, we can make our own decisions. But I also feel like if I own a property, I mean, I already don't own it because I'm having to pay taxes on it anyway. I'm like basically renting it from the government, even if I own it outright, right, forever. So that annoys me. Because it's mine, right? Like I paid for it, I bought it, it belongs to me.
But don't pay your taxes, and guess what? You lose it.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. And so but I've always been frustrated with people who are like, well, you shouldn't be able to do that. You have to do this. Oh, you want to build a deck? You want to repair your deck? You got to go and get a permit. I'm like, what are we talking about? Like, this is my home. Why? I actually know, I think it was a house that I bought. I have a little bit of rental property, and this is a duplex that I had bought, and it had the guy I think wanted to build the previous owner wanted to build like a shed or whatever, a workshop, and the planning board declined him from building a workshop. So then he went back and asked if he could build a garage, and so they approved him to build a garage, and he just built it as a workshop. It's like the silliness of it in the first place, but like, what in the world? Why do you care? Let me build my own structure. This idea that America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, is we have so many regulations on what I'm allowed to do that ratchet up the cost of everything, right? Because not only am I going to have to pay for that permit, but the town has to have employees. And so they need more employees to be able to handle like who gets to do this and who gets to do that, driving up taxes further. And look, I'm so tired of the government trying to protect me. Like, let me take on whatever risk I choose to take on. Government, get the heck out of the way. Like, and what happens. And we all make decisions. And that's where you talk about like the rent control piece. And then I want to get into some other issues, but this is a fun one.
No, we can talk all day about this, but if you're not economically free, you're not free. So what do? They bombard you with fees and taxes. If it's a fee, it's a tax, right? Bottom line, you reach in your pocket, you give the government, it's a tax, right? So they bombard you with that, and they keep you under their thumb. So, if you can't afford to put food in your refrigerator, get oil in your tank, gas in your car, and then take a week or two off a year with your family, you're not free. Bottom line, you're not free. And the reason you're not free is because of government, right? I always make the analogy that we are all Davids and they're Goliath. And it's up to us as individuals to slay that giant. The bottom line is they're in our way. They basically but they're good at one thing, taking money out of our pockets. Now, they're not good at how they spend it. They waste the money. They spend it on stupid projects. Right?
Like no bid contracts?
Huh?
Like no bid contracts.
Yeah, like $2.1 billion in no bid contracts.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I could go they've given us so much to run on.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I know people all over the state, and again, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, unenrolled. It doesn't matter to me. Green Party. This is 7 out of 10 issues, and we have to win, or government wins. So you want government is your answer? Well, hey, I'm sorry, you and I are totally on the wrong page. Opposite ends of the spectrum. I want government out of my life. I want people to invest in their lives as they see fit. I want them to know that the American dream is open. The opportunity is there. The opportunity is there. I was given an opportunity as a child when I was a younger man, and I took advantage of it. And I've had a good life as a result of it. I just made up my mind that I wanted to be more than I had been raised with expectations. So. Like I said, my father was a machinist, and he was a great machinist, but I just never saw myself working running a vertical turret lathe or a boring mill, or it was not my, it was something I didn't really want to do. I wanted to build, and I had it in my head. I wanted to build. So I think that no matter who you are, what you want to be, I say, if you make up your mind, you want to be the best at anything, I don't care what it is, you should have that freedom to do so. And I think government should stop getting in the way. When you have young kids that have to get work permits to work, we didn't have to do any of that. Now they got it so it's $17.50 to get a job at McDonald's, and it cost me $10 for one hamburger. I'm like, what happened?
Yeah, I heard about the work permits on Monday when I was on the Ray Richardson show. I actually didn't even know about this. That in order to hire somebody, you actually have to get somebody 15 or something like that. The superintendent of the school has to approve.
Sign off. Yeah, they have to. They have to give you.
As a parent, I would just be like, no, no, you don't have authority to tell me what my child can do. I'm sorry. What?
Well, they believe they're the parent now, okay?
Well, so the children are their children. Yeah,
they're trying to assume the role. Kind of reminds me of the Brown Church, But I mean, the idea that they think that they know better for what's better for my child is, scary.
Right, or that they care more about your child or any that. That's the stuff. It's like they don't trust the children, or they don't trust the parents, and it's not even that they don't trust. Well, they do. They don't trust the parents because they know that the parents will stop them from doing the things that they want to do to your kids. It's not because they care about your kids. It's that they're concerned, not that the parents are going to do something harmful to the children, but the parents are going to get in the way of them being able to usurp that position and authority that really belongs to parents. And so
parental rights, big topic.
Big topic. So we talked a little bit about education, but not really too deeply. But we talked a lot about housing, but and some about economics and getting the government out of our pocket. What are the other issues that are the really driving force of you making the decision to, essentially we'll call it risk your business, your livelihood, all that other kind of stuff. Because running as a Republican in Southern Maine is kind of like putting a really, really big target on your back. And given the fact that you're well known for putting out Trump signs in Falmouth, I mean, I don't think you're afraid of that that target. But
they say ignorance is bliss, right?
But what are the other motivating issues that you think are really important and that you're planning to seek to address as governor?
Well, parents' rights, parental rights, education in the state of Maine, so important. Kids, again, I think vocational training it's imperative. Absolutely imperative that Mainers are given the opportunity and not shunned because they want to be a tradesman. I mean, we need trades. Everybody needs trades. I don't care who it is. You can call and pick up your phone when we get done with this today and try and hire a plumber to come today or tomorrow to do work. You're going to be 3 weeks or a month out, right? So we have shortages. So education is really important. I think we're 49th in the country.
Depending on which metric, 40th. I've heard people say
I don't know. If we're not number one,
we're not good.
Right. We should be number one, especially with, I think the average cost per student now is 22 grand or something.
It's over 20 grand.
That's 22,000. I think is right. So you think about that, and what are we getting? Are our children smarter? Can they do math in their head? When I went to school, and we did everything in our head. We did our times tables, division, all multiple, addition, subtraction. I still think I don't even need a calculator. I can just bang, bang, bang. It comes in my head. But that skill has been dulled. We don't teach handwriting. Right? A lot of people don't know how to sign their name. They got to print their name. Right? I mean,
yeah, Libbytown in the comments is saying math, science, trades, reading, English, cursive. Like you sign your name. These things are kind of important.
Very important. I mean, look, imagine if John Hancock had printed his name. All right, and what it would look like. All right, so I mean, you think of that, and you wonder what they're doing and why they're trying to dumb us down. Look, I'm all into technology, so I don't have anything against technology. Right, I use it every day in my real estate business, and it's very important. It's there, right? But there's a balance. Your mind is still your mind. Your brain has to be trained, and if you don't start when people are young. I think the Japanese started with that Suzuki method of teaching violins, and the kids are, by the time 4 years old, are master violinists, right? I mean, they learn. Children.
The Japanese are committed. We're going to say that.
Well, right? No, it's just I've been to Japan, and it's a great population, but they got away from the basics, right, with farming and being self-sufficient. So I don't want us to make that same mistake. But teaching people young, I was raised, kids should have been seen but not heard. I say I want them to be seen. I definitely want to hear them, because one of the reasons I'm running for governor is because my grandkids said something to me. Sometime I'll share it with you, that made me say, okay, I got to do this. Right. But had those two grandkids not said that to me on that day, I probably wouldn't be on this podcast with you right now. But it made me realize that, I need to do this, and I'm doing it for the right reasons. It's not about me. I don't have an ego. I left that at the curb a long time ago. In life you have ups and downs, goods and bads that happen all the time. And, after a while, it's like wine. It gets better with age, and you accumulate knowledge. So, I've learned a lot. I've done a lot in my life. I'm that guy that's, realize and live the American dream. I know what it's like to be poor and have pants that are 6 inches short and have to get crew cuts because they couldn't afford to get a regular haircut on a regular basis, right? My mom would just shave my head. That was a way of dealing with haircuts. So I know what it's like. And when you go through that in life, and you go through those steps, and you make something, and you realize the American dream, it's alive. People said you can't make money unless you have money. Not true. You know what you have? You got 10 toes, 10 hands, a brain, a functioning brain.
10 hands.
You can do any damn thing you want if you make up your mind to do it. Period. You can do it, Chuck. I mean, look at you. You got involved in the politics just a couple of years ago. And now you're doing a podcast. You're chairman of Cumberland County Republican Party. All the people that are in the know, and you're working your tail off to build a base, right? Because you care, but you made up your mind that Chuck wanted to do this, and I'm sitting here because David wanted to do it, and David did it. So I always tell people that the only difference between, say, an object like this, all right, or an object like this, and then all the air that's surrounding him is these are ideas that people had in their head, and they acted on it, and they made it happen. Air is all the other ones that people never did, because either they were oppressed financially or convinced that they could not do it. And so my job in life has always been to teach my kids that they can do any darn thing they make up their mind with. And anyone who cares to listen, that works for me at F.O. Bailey Real Estate, they do great. They make great livings. I mean, they all make six figures. I mean, that's amazing, when you see it. So, I'm a can-do, diehard optimist. I'm also a realist, but I'm an optimist. I believe in people. I believe because someone believed in David and said, "Hey, David, here's your chance." And David was all over it like, flies on manure. And I'm just glad I took the chance, and I fought, and I did it, and learned, and I still have my, it was 20, I think it was 26 or 7 when I got I have a Class A general contractor's license in Florida. All right. And, I was very young when I did that, and it was probably the second hardest test in the country to pass. It's a really
Wow.
difficult because you're building in Florida, but I have Class A, which means I could build anything: bridges, high rises, malls, shopping centers. And I started on with houses, and then I built into the bigger stuff. But it was all progressive. I don't like to use that word. I progressed.
Yeah.
I progressed.
It's really annoying how the Democrats have destroyed our language, and there are words that make sense to use, but we have to think about using because of how they've ruined them. But things progressing is not a bad thing
there's a lot
in general. but when it comes to politics, somehow their progress is regressive. But anyway.
Well, you're right, and so it's funny that the tolerance. They say, and I always say the people that profess tolerance are probably the most intolerant.
Yeah.
When I grew up, things were a lot different in our country, and there was racism. There was, if you were gay, it was the end of the world, and there's all these things happen now. It's changed, and it's great, and it's good, but and all because people understood, began to think about in their head what's right and what's wrong, how would they want to be treated. I always say, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. All right. So, and as you go through life, but then you see how they, every 2 or 4 years, they go right back to the race card. They go right back to the gay card, and they use it as a tool to fundraise around and make it sound as if Republicans or conservatives don't like them. Well, that's not true. I mean, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. I say live and let live. It's been my mantra for as long as I've been alive. And so, I mean, the idea that Republicans think like that, it's wrong. But you know what it is? It's divisionary politics. They're what's called wedge issues, and they wedge them in between us every single time. And people take the bait. So all I'd say, if there's anybody watching this that's from the other side and they want to understand why we are where we are, is stop taking the bait, and start working towards common goals, and then we can make this a better place. We can, and it's just up to us. And I say, the last 4 letters in American are
can. 4 letters. I can.
What's the last 4 letters in Republican?
I think it's the same.
I can. You got it. We can. All right. So as long as you believe you can, then it can happen. Don't let them hold you back. Don't take the bait. Just stay alive and fight for what you believe in. Nothing wrong with taking a position. You mentioned the fact that I'm a conservative and I'm in Falmouth, Maine, and that must be risky. But you know what? I was told 20 years ago that I couldn't be in politics and be a conservative and be in this business. Well, every year my business grows. People who know me know I'm fair, I'm balanced in how my approach to life, and they keep bringing me business, and they keep bringing repeat deals, and they refer friends to me, and so I don't buy into that. I say you are who you are. Stand up for what you believe. And don't be afraid of don't run your business for fear of retribution. I don't. You know me. I'm unabashedly conservative. I love America. I love my family. I love God, and I'm not going to shy away from that. And I wholeheartedly supported Donald J. Trump. And people say, "Oh, you can't do that." Oh, guess what I did? And that guy fought, and he should be the mantra for people. I mean, here's a guy that had everything in the world that anybody could ever want, decided it was time and he had to give back, and ran for president, fought against all odds, got shot at twice, all right, who got indicted, got impeached, over and over. They did everything in the world to stop him. And hell, our own Secretary of State, what does she do? Try to remove him from the ballot. But try to rob us as Mainers our right to support.
That's a gubernatorial candidate, Shanna Bellows. Actually, not just declared that he was going to be removed from the ballot, and it was only when the Supreme Court told her no that she put him back on. But supposedly, she's all about preserving and protecting democracy.
Yeah, well, this is a republic, all right? We are a republic, and we're supposed to have a representative government. Shanna Bellows does not represent Mainers, period. Every move that she's ever taken in supporting, usurping the Maine Constitution for ranked choice voting. She gave testimony on his behalf. I mean, think about where we are. We have a Secretary of State. I think ethically she should resign, because now she's trying to put rules in place that would favor her and hurt her opponents. And acting in that capacity as Secretary of State, that's in charge of what? What do we do when we vote in November? Elections, right?
Elections. Yeah.
So we have this woman sitting there saying the things and doing the things she's doing. I think it's totally wrong. Totally.
Yeah, well, especially like when you look at the way that she words things, that, for instance,
look at this.
The voter ID for that we're trying to push. So voter ID, everybody get out and vote in November in favor of voter ID. Yes, the way that it's worded sounds ridiculous, and it shouldn't be allowed. I have in the past. I don't remember. I don't have it committed to memory, but it basically is like, do you want to stop people from being able to vote in these situations? And it's like, it's not quite that aggressive, but it's pretty close to that.
It's in the court right now whether she can put it in there on the ballot.
Yeah, hopefully they win.
Hopefully judges, we'll see.
You know what? It doesn't make sense to me. Like, I feel like she should have no say over that. I feel like if we're going to do ballot initiatives, which generally speaking, just for the record, I don't love that aspect of our government. I feel like we elect a legislature and they should create the laws. That's the process. But I guess this is a check in case they don't do what we want. And my response is, well, let's elect different people, but whatever. But anyway, so we have this process, right? So shouldn't part of the process be including the language of what the question should be? Like, why in the world does she have any say over that?
Why can't the question just be the damn question? Period. Do you want voter ID, picture ID for voting? Period. End of subject. But no, they put this litany of questions all in one, and you're standing there and you're reading and you're thinking, oh, Jesus.
It's designed to make you think that grandma and grandpa aren't going to be able to vote. It's like, no, stop.
Or that people aren't capable of getting a voter ID or so people can't get a driver's license. Is there people out there that can't get a driver's license?
The beautiful thing, one of the arguments has been that people are too poor, and usually somehow this is focused on Black people as though they're not just poor, but also apparently don't know how and where to go to get a license. And it's like, well, if they have a bank account, they have to have a license. So like, let's stop this insane. But just to kind of preserve or I guess avoid that silly thing, the bill actually includes that the government will pay for people's IDs if they need an ID to vote, right? So there's no cost to people. So you're worried about poor people not being able to get an ID because they can't afford it. Sorry, that's actually taken care of in the way that this legislation is created. So anyway,
politics is what it is.
Should absolutely resign and she's very extreme, which I think because she's very extreme, there's a really good chance that she wins the Democrat primary, but she is going against
I don't think she will.
I think the things that I'm hearing is that Hannah Pingree probably has a better chance than Bella's.
That's who I'm going to have to beat when I win the primary here.
There you go. So, all right. So we talked about education, and I just want to, just for fun, we've talked about AI. You're in favor of AI, but you don't agree with Pender Macon that it doesn't, who's the current chair of the Board of Education in Maine, that we don't need to worry about all these other things because we have AI, and students don't need to know anything because AI will tell them what they need to know. You don't agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, Pender Macon's got to go. I mean, the whole idea, like the things that she would say, that traditional learning is going to have to take a back seat to DEI and CRT. I mean, I'm sorry, you're out of there, right? You do not represent me. And I think if we took a poll, and then the DHHS, we got to hit on DHHS.
Ooh, yeah.
I mean, that's too big. They spend too much money on too many things. They put people in the field to handle problems that are above their pay grade. They're not trained properly. There's children that have died. I think there's 148 children have died.
I think that's the number.
Right?
Walk a mile in his shoes with Bill Diamond has done a great job. I said,
that's a lot of children, man. You do it divided by 7 years. That's a lot of children that have died unnecessarily. And why? So. And then they hire themselves to do a report on themselves to say they didn't do anything wrong in the handling of all those cases, which is bizarre. I mean, just like putting a rooster in a hen house, right?
So and you have all the employees had their vote of no confidence essentially in the person. Like they have all the
but then who do they put in their place?
Well, yeah, no, I the number two, the person
the
who
one
is
advocating for the same stuff. So they get rid of
30
one
years or whatever it is. That's a crap show, for sure.
They spend our money like drunken sailors in port. Not anything against drunken sailors. My father was a drunken sailor who had a great time when he was in the Navy. But the bottom line is they just don't know. Most of the people that are in charge really have never signed the front of a check. I think it's so important. I've run my own business since I was 17 years old. And there's been good times, there's been bad times. I worked my way through them, and I am where I am today because I'm persistent as all hell, right? They say persistence and perseverance together are omnipotent, right? But and it's true. If you just keep your focus on what you're doing and what you want to be and where you want to go in life, then you'll get there. You will. I mean, just don't, you can't set unattainable goals. You got to set goals that work within, so you can have degrees of success along the way so you don't get frustrated. And I think that's the problem most people make. They say, "Oh, I'm going to be a multi-millionaire." Well, guess what? You got to get $1,000 in the bank before you get to 10,000 and 20,000 on a million, whatever. Right? It goes in stages, right? It doesn't just, unless you hit the lottery. And how many people hit the lottery? And so,
not many. If you play the lottery, that's called voluntary taxation.
Yes. Yeah. And how many people win the lottery, right? But at least you've reached into your pocket and said, I want to take that chance. It hasn't been like, well, okay, now you're going to sneakily put 14 cents a gallon on gas. And then every time you buy gasoline, which I buy a lot traveling in real estate all over the state of Maine, and then it goes in the maintenance fund. Then they say, well, we really, the hell with the maintenance fund. Let's put it in the general fund. Then we'll put it on some study somewhere, or it gets spent on some ridiculous program. They say, oh, well, let's, we're going to increase your electric bill, but we're not really going to tell you why. You really got to do your homework to find out that subsidy you're paying there for the power, the air, the wind turbines and solar, that's on your bill, and you're paying for that whether you like it or not. And let's face it doesn't work. I think it's like 30-something% of the time it's actually able to generate electricity. The windmills are horrible.
Yeah,
I mean, they're pollutants. They're ridiculous. And so it's a failed science. And if it was a science that worked, private enterprise would invest in it. T. Boone Pickens was going to put up the largest wind farm in the United States. And then he ran the numbers and said, sorry, it doesn't work. And he backed out of the deal. And T. Boone Pickens was one smart son of a gun. But, so if it doesn't work, why are we subsidizing it? Why are we just going down this path where, government can say to us, oh, look, hey, David, you know what? You can afford that subsidy. We're going to put it. And, Michael, well, you can't afford it, but you're going to have to pay it anyway. You're already, you can't pay electric bill. We're going to add a subsidy on top of it for a failed science that we know isn't going to work. So, I mean, it's just, So
what do we do? So you talk about that because I think that's a really important question. I think it kind of like gets at, obviously, as conservatives, I guess as conservatives, we want the economy to grow. I think everybody technically says that they want the economy to grow. The Democrats try to grow it by increased government spending, and something. But we want the economy to grow. But how do we get businesses to invest in Maine? With the current,
really
energy
simple
costs, right?
You get rid of all the regulatory restrictions that make things cost as much money as they do, and they'll come here. I've talked to companies. I know some pretty interesting guys that own some pretty interesting companies, and they would love to be in Maine, but because of what it costs to have your business here is very hard. And they're like, I could be over there in New Hampshire. And that doesn't cost me anything. I have no income tax. And my property taxes might be a little bit higher, but you know what? The earning capacity of the people in New Hampshire is about $19,000 more than it is here per year in Maine. Wow. Why? Because the businesses aren't here. So, what happens as a result of that? Our young people leave the state and go seeking their fortunes elsewhere. When we have the most beautiful state, I mean, listen, I love the state.
Yeah, we
We
call it
have every
vacation land for a reason, right? It's
we have
beautiful. Everybody
everything.
wants to come here. Yeah.
Yeah, 40 million people a year come to the state. If we can keep 2% of them every year
Yeah.
for 10 years, then we got ignition, right? Things will start to happen. Why can't we attract 2%? Well, because the cost of living is so high. So what we have to do is just, if we want businesses to be here, we got to make it so they can afford to be here. You look at Dragon Concrete; they pulled out of here because the town wouldn't let them run natural gas into their plant. That's a huge loss for us to
Yeah.
lose that Dragon. So I mean, that's just one company. Over the years, we had 160, I think, lumber mills, processor paper mills here in Maine, and now we got some small, insignificant number of plants. I think they just closed J too, right? Didn't that just close?
The
Right.
mill.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So when you think about this, they've run industry out of here, and when they run industry out of here, what do they run out? Jobs,
Right.
and what makes the world go round? Circular economics. Circular economics. What's that? Well, the guy gets paid on a Friday with his paycheck. He goes to the bank. He pays some of his bills. He puts gas in his car. He goes to the grocery store. He buys groceries. That money gets spent like 3 times in the economy. So when you wipe out all those jobs, for what? What's replacing them? Nada. What?
Right.
Medicaid, Medicare, right? Maine care, right? So they put people in Maine care, and so and this is a great thing. We're gonna make sure that we take all the pride out of every single Mainer that we can, and not let them realize their dreams, or take their jobs away, and not have an alternate plan. These people just never had to make it in the private sector. Janet Mills, I mean, look at what she's done. She's been in government her entire life. I'm not going to get into her shredding her do bad. Now, everyone, you saw what people think about her when she was at the Moose Lottery, right? So I mean,
Yes.
this is her state. She was, born here. Her father was a conservative Republican, right? But you wouldn't know it today. He must be just looking at from wherever he is and saying, "Oh my God, what the hell happened? How did this happen?" Berkeley. So when you look at where we are today and in the leadership, these people just don't have the qualifications to be where they are. And this isn't a popularity contest. We're talking about billions of dollars being spent by people who have no idea what it takes to earn that dollar. Right? You think about that. They just don't know, and they haven't signed the front of a check. And you hear the mindset. They had a bill up there a couple weeks ago where they were fuel choice. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. And they wanted to
heard about it. I don't remember.
So it was the idea that just either allow or not allow towns to make a choice to get rid of wood, oil, gas, or propane. So the town could come in if this bill hadn't passed, it hadn't been shot down, right? That the town could come in and say, "Oh, you spent $30,000, David, on putting a heating system, high efficiency, oil-based heating system in your home, but we're not going to let the oil companies deliver here anymore." Right? The whole thing was ridiculous, like everything else they've been doing, right? But so you look at that and you think, my God, these people pretty much were going to say no to wood, no to oil, no to propane, no to gas, no to gas, and what do we use? What do we do? Rub two sticks together? I mean, how do you heat your home? And so they it's like they come up. It would wake up in the middle of the night with every stupid idea, write it down, and run into the legislature with it. Run into the halls with it with these stupid ideas, and then half of them support it, and our side, fortunately, doesn't. Right? It's bottom line. Our side is sensible, and I think when that first came through, it was 17-17. Right? They went back to the House and had to go back again, and then it got passed with a 12-vote majority. It was a lot of pressure put on them, on their by their constituents to, stop it dead in its tracks. But the idea that something like that could even get to that point,
Right?
it's because it's ludicrous, right? It's scary. So people say it doesn't make any difference who we elect. It makes a big difference. Leadership is everything. Everything. I mean, and it's for me. I go back to Trump, and people hate Trump, or they got TDS, and they just can't stand the man. And regardless of what he's doing is right or not for America, because Trump's doing it, then I don't want to support it. But the bottom line is that a good idea is a good idea. If you're Republican, Democrat, unenrolled, Green Party, whatever you are, if you have a good idea, I want to hear it. I want to know about it. Right? I'm not a rocket scientist, but I'll tell you what I am. I'm a guy that listens. I'm a guy that wants to listen, wants to learn, and I'm not intimidated by people that are smarter than me. I want smarter people around me. I will surround myself with people that'll do the job and do it great. If otherwise, they won't be there. Bottom line, and I'll build a group of people that'll go into the state house and do the work that the people of Maine want. Period. And if they're not qualified, they don't get the job.
Yeah.
It's tough.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
if people say it doesn't matter, it matters. It matters that you didn't get your butt up off the couch. You didn't vote. You didn't vote in the town council meetings. You didn't vote on the Board of Education budget. You didn't vote on the state meetings. You didn't vote on the federal elections. Well, guess what? People in Iraq, when they were at first, they had to get their thumb and dip it in purple ink. And they went there knowing they were at risk. They'd walk outside and the snipers would shoot them, right, for voting because they didn't want them to vote. So we don't die when we vote.
Right.
We take 10 minutes out of our time, all right, in our busy schedule, and then we go in and we vote. And if you don't vote, you get what we have right now. What we have right now is oppressive.
And I think the majority of the people that are listening to this podcast are motivated enough to pay attention to a political podcast a year and a half before the election, approximately. And so, or approximately a year before the primary. So they're probably motivated people who are probably going to show up to vote. If not, guys, get out to vote. But we also need to figure out how to encourage, your less politically motivated and politically engaged people to vote. And I think that's on us. I think that's a part where we need to make sure that we're having conversations with people and do the additional effort. Yeah, it would be great. Again, we can live in an idealistic world where it's like, well, the GOP needs to do that, or they should care on their own. But it's like, we have to live in the world that exists, not the world we want to exist. And we need to get people out because, like, right now, like, it's so funny. Like, if you turn back the clock for me, like 5 or 6 years, like I wouldn't have wanted to say something like this. I probably wouldn't have said something like this, but we're in a place right now where the Democrat Party is untenable. And so almost exclusively, we're going to be better off with a Republican, even if it's a Republican that you're not absolutely in love with, than we are with a Democrat, because the Democrats walk in lockstep and they're doing insane things like transgender treatment of minors, kids under the age of 18. They're putting medical facilities in schools through which they're trying to transition children. Right there. And there's these are things that are being pushed, and all the other things that we talked about were, and like the things that are ruining our economic situation, cost of energy and cost of living going up, all these things, they're radical. Abortion all the way up until birth. Despite the fact that despite the fact that like 80% of people do believe, 80% of people across the nation in the state of Maine believe that abortion should be limited at the very least to viability. After viability, that it shouldn't happen. 80% of people. And yet, what do? They enact policies that go far more extreme than that because they are extreme and they don't care about the consequences of their actions. Right now, they're playing in Augusta as though there's no way that they'll ever possibly lose again, because they are, like, even in like what I believe are swing districts, you have people voting against the vast majority of people and being vocal about it. In places where somebody won with 50% of the vote, like they're operating from a perspective of total radicalism, and the only tenable option are conservatives at this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, again, I like to look at myself. I am conservative, but I'm an American, and every one of us are Americans. And I think that most Americans, I don't care who you are, that you display a certain level of common sense, all right? And it's either practical or it's impractical. When it comes to life, I mean, listen, I have 6 beautiful children and I have 8 soon to be 8 great, beautiful grandchildren. I look at them and I just think, what my life would be without any one of them. How that void that fills with everyone, another one comes in. It's like the most beautiful thing on the planet for me. I love it. I mean, just love it. But to think that, people would, terminate that and not give that life an opportunity to exist, they have to live with that. And when Janet Mills put in, that's the most atrocious abortion bill in the world. It's not just states, in the world, right up to the day of death, with doctors consented to kill a person, to murder that child. It's horrible. I mean, I just can't believe that someone even would go there. I mean, and so that's what we have to beat that back into its cages. And I like to not use any words that keep us further divided. I think that I would tell everybody, you have common sense. God gave you the ability, free will, and to make up your own mind and do the things that you want. And if government's trying to influence you in those decisions and tell you what's right and what you shouldn't be doing, I'd say you're going to the wrong place. It's God, not Gov. You look.
I like it.
You go to church. You meet great people. There's a lot of people who don't go to church, and that's fine too. But they believe in God, or they have a good moral code. Read the 10 Commandments, and they tell you the things you shouldn't do. I mean, it's simple as that, just for good civil behavior. So whether you believe in Jesus Christ, or you believe in Buddha, or you believe in whoever you believe in, the bottom line is that's a good moral code. It's something to look back at and say, that's a good. I should listen to that instead of what I'm hearing now. So violence is a big part of our society. I never would have dreamed that. I remember back a long time ago when I used to see the wars going on in Ireland. Battles. I mean, it was a war, but battles, we'll call it battles. And I used to think, God, thank God we don't have that here in our country. Well, guess what? It's here. And, I mean, it's come to our doorstep. We've got, people out there that I don't know what their motivation is. I mean, why would they want mayhem over civility? And why would they choose to not believe in God and follow the practices of the devil? I mean, I see people walk around with satanic symbols tattooed on their body. I'm like, what are you thinking? I mean, do you believe in evil or do you believe in good? And I think if we just preach more good, and if we reach out to our friends and our family and our neighbors, and one of the things I'll tell you, this Easy Pass, and it sounds funny, I'm bringing it up here, but I used to love to stop at the toll booth, getting on the turnpike, and see my buddy Jerry. And I would say, "Hey, Jerry, how you doing?" He'd be there with a smile. He was just a great guy, Then I was like, they came with the Easy Pass. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I won't see Jerry anymore, right? And one day I got the Easy Pass. I don't see Jerry anymore, right? So it's depersonalized our society. We need to communicate on a broader basis. What you're doing here with your podcast is fantastic. This is the kind of stuff that has to happen because we're uncensored. Anything that's being said, this is who we are, right? And then you make up your mind. I trust people to make up their own mind. Government doesn't. They know what's better for you, your kid. I'll tell you with the transgender thing. I when I was growing up, there was this girl. She was like total tomboy, right? Total tomboy, and I mean, like she hung out with the guys, right? And years later, I was down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I'm walking along the strip in Fort Lauderdale, and I hear David Jones. I'm like, who's that? And I see this absolutely drop dead gorgeous blonde headed girl waving at me, and I'm pointing to myself like, hey, yeah, you, it's me. And she come running up and jumped and gave me a big hug. So it was the tomboy turned into this absolutely gorgeous butterfly. And so in that time, if you have in our time now, if that person was a tomboy, they would automatically adhere, incubate that to a point. Well, maybe you really should have been a boy. and maybe we're going to
Yeah,
help you with
100%.
yeah, I mean, that's not the position of our schools and our teachers and our leaders.
Yeah.
I have no problem with people being who they want to be. Up until age 18, you have parental rights, right? And
Yep.
if the parents want to go along with it, great, all right? But be careful, because if you start doing hormones and everything else with younger people, then later in life they might regret it. I've seen horror stories about that. So I think 18, and then let the person make up their own mind, then we can, but to push it on and influence these young people to be something they may later in life regret, I think it's a big mistake. So
Yeah, absolutely,
be all you
especially
can
with
be.
all the health risks and all those
Oh,
associated things.
sure.
As experimental treatments is what they are. Anybody who tries to tell you differently is full of crap. If they're not experimental, then they're intentionally damaging. For these kids that are under the age of 18, yeah, but we live in a free society. You're over 18. You want to do it. You want to do what you want to do. I
God
mean,
bless. Yeah, do
do,
it.
do
Yeah.
your thing. But yeah. So, yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah, so I mean
that makes a
that's
lot
how
of
I feel
sense. But
about like that to me is it seems to be a big topic. Boys and girls sports. I think that's a problem. I mean, I really have a problem with that. My kids were played sports, and if they worked their whole life to be good in their sport, and then all of a sudden some guy came along and said, "Oh, I actually identify as a girl," and then ended up taking the title away from my daughter. I'd be
or
one
not even.
an individual.
I was hearing recently like that I think one of the athletes that's a male competing in women's sports doesn't even identify as being female, identifies as being non-binary, and that allows
Mm.
them to compete in the
Yeah,
women's.
yeah. Or yeah, just
Like
really.
I just
That's funny. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
Anyway,
look, obviously, there's some confusion in their life. I don't think, we should, ignore the signals that are
yeah,
being sent out.
and let's
But
be clear.
you got to be
Nobody's
fair.
against the kids. Nobody's against the kids in this
Yeah.
conversation. We're not like it's a matter of like this is not healthy. This is not good. We need to protect our girls, and the adults in the room need to be adults.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, and what you look,
Yeah,
we have generational teachings now that have taught us to this non-binary, my pronouns, or I'm going to be a furry, or I'm going to be a brony. I mean, you wonder, how we got here. I mean,
yeah.
the idea. Look, there's two sexes, men, women, boys, girls. Period. That's it, right? And if
I
you
got a
put,
bumper sticker for that too.
do you really? I like
Oh
this.
yeah. Where is? Here we go.
Boys are girls. Boys are boys. Girls are girls. 2 + 2. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I was going to say, if you put 100 trans men on an island and come back in 100 years, you're going to have 100 skeletons, right? You put 50 men and 50 women on an island, you're going to come back and have a population, right? So at what point does it make sense, right? Again,
Yeah.
it's common sense. This is a 90-10 issue. Why the governor of the state of Maine and the body of legislature is supporting this insanity is beyond me. They're not representing their constituents, because I guarantee that, okay, yeah, they got elected, but they were entrusted to represent their constituents. If they make a vote and it's not representative of the people that elected them, then I'm sorry, they shouldn't be there, right? So it's up to our. We really have to work hard to win the House, the Senate, and the gubernatorial race this time, And I can tell you this: all my life in business, I've had an open door policy. People come into my office, day or night. You call me, day or night, weekends, it doesn't matter. I'm always there, and I mean it. If I don't answer the phone right away, or I'm in a meeting, I'll meet with you as soon as I'm done. So, we have to have that same open door policy in the state house. I remember I talked to Olympia Snow years ago, and she was telling me about how it was and the reason she was going to retire. And she was going to retire because she felt as though she was wasting her time. in the legislature, right? Because here she says I was I was a junior congresswoman when Ronald Reagan was elected, and he would come in the halls and he would come around and he would shake hands, cajole with people, both sides of the fence. He didn't care. And when it came time to vote, if it was a good bill, it got passed, period. They were with him on both sides of the fence. And then she says, this guy, Obama, he comes in, he storms into the Senate hall, he goes up on the podium, he lectures us on what we should do, and then he storms out and leaves. She goes, that's not how you lead people. That's not how you lead. She says, I forgot more about government than that man knows, and he came in and lectured me. I'm not wasting my years left on this earth going down that path. So, you wonder why good people leave. Because they get frustrated. But I tell people, I making calls around people to support me as governor, I hear a lot of different stories from folks, and they're like, "Oh, I'm thinking about leaving the stand." I said, "Don't, because you leave, we lose, they win." All right, you've got to stand up and fight. We fought for our freedom against overwhelming odds when we separated ourselves from Britain. Overwhelming odds. And we made it. Right, we created a country that's the greatest experiment known to man. 249 years later, most of them don't last any more than 150, 200 years. We're 249 years going in our 250th year now. We're a good experiment. Things are good. Now we've gone off the rails a little bit here, and we just, and I always beg my Democrat friends, would you please get a hold of your party and stop it? Right, and stop the nonsense. I want the Ronald Reagan, Tip O'Neill type relationship where Democrats and Republicans can have a conversation and work towards the greater good. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to work towards the greater good, but we're not. We're going towards these individual idealistic moves. And I always say the only difference between ideology and idiots is a couple letters. Right, some of these things that we hear out there. Honestly, why are we even having the conversation?
Yeah, why? No, and to your point about the Democrat Party, like I've said this, and I think there's different views on this, and they would love to see the Democrat Party go away. I would love to see the Democrat Party reformed. I would love there to be two parties that had different philosophies and different perspectives that were both good, and we could choose between multiple decent options. We're in this situation where right now we basically have a completely untenable party and a party that has problems, that is, but that has the best outlook. It's the only option. It is a game in town. Is there corruption within the Republican? There's corruption everywhere, right? There are problems, but at least it's an option, and our philosophy is one that leads to flourishing. It's pro-capitalism, which is good, by the way, just in case people are wondering. Socialism is bad. It leads to communism and corruption. One of the things I like to say about the juxtaposition between socialism and capitalism is in capitalism, it's easier for people who have money, absolutely. But in socialism, you have shared poverty. So, you have opportunity on one side and then shared poverty on the other side.
Socialism is the first step to communism, bottom line. And and in socialism, there's always somebody in charge. So true socialism doesn't exist and can't exist, right? So with capitalism, you said something I don't agree with. With capitalism, it makes it easier for people to have money. In capitalism, it makes it easier for people who don't have money to better themselves.
What I'm saying is, like, in our society, if you have money, like it is easy to take that money and be successful. I'm not saying it's not easy. It's not possible for people who don't have money, but I am saying that starting with money does make it a little bit easier. But it's not. It's still
money's a tool, no doubt about it.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. Money. I didn't start. A lot of people with money who fail. Right?
Absolutely. I didn't start with money. I've built things up. You didn't start with money. You built things up. That's the beauty of the American society. This is why people come here from all over the world. This is why people are trying to get here, because of the opportunity that does exist. So, and it's because of capitalism that opportunity exists.
Are they jumping on rafts to get to China or Russia?
Not that
You know,
I'm aware of.
are they swimming through seas and weathering storms,
Venezuela, maybe?
jumping in?
Venezuela.
Yeah, I mean, all I'm just saying, yeah, that was a
Yeah.
whole nother thing.
Yeah, that's
They
it.
blew that deal. But so look, what we have here is really amazing. If a guy like myself can become what I've become in my life, and look, I am by far the wealthiest person that's in this race. There's people going to come to this race with lots and lots and lots of money. And fine, bring it on. I believe that, what I have is worth more than money. And I think that I'll work harder than them because I know what it's like to work harder and smarter. And, money can't buy Maine politics. And, so this is going to be an interesting primary because we have a pretty diverse group of people. And, I love to see how I fare amongst them. I've said this multiple times that this is my first job interview. I've never had a job interview. I never had a job, right? I always worked and I had my own business.
Yep.
So, this would be interesting to see if I get the job or not. But it's up to the people of Maine. Do they want somebody that's real? No, they want somebody that's saying what they want to say just to get elected and gets in there and forgets amnesia. So I would say that, I pretty much know everybody that's in the field and thinking about getting in the field. And out of all of them, I'd say I'm the guy that will do what they want done, and I won't forget where I came from. And when you come from where I come from, it makes a difference. Loyalty and honesty and trust. Trust is so easy to lose. Loyalty is hard to earn, and but in life you learn a lot of lessons. You really do. I tell people all the time, failure breeds success, because you learn how to do things by failing. So you learn, well, I'm not going to do that again. Right? But if you don't try, you're not going to succeed. So you just have to understand that, when you elect a person, whether it's me or anybody else, whoever it is, I just hope they got their head on straight, that you're electing someone that's supposed to go there and do the job that you want, not what they want. Right. And so I've been around enough, 18 years on the radio with Ray. I've been around in a lot of politics, lived in rural Maine, lived in southern Maine, mid coast Maine. And I can say this. I understand Maine people. I respect the Maine people. I trust the Maine people more than anything else. I mean, they're smart and they're wicked intuitive, and they can read a person like a book. And so I'd say, read me, and you'll know that when I tell you yes, it means yes, and no, it means no. Period. All right. Awesome. And if I say I have your back, I have it. I'm not going to, I'll go back to you anytime, with you to make sure that, whatever it is you want to do in life, I want to make sure it happens. And I'm going to do it allowing the private sector the freedoms that it should have. And I don't think government's the answer. It's the problem. It's the problem. We have to get it down. Smaller government, lower taxes, right? Support our small businesses. I think it's like 80% of the jobs here in Maine are small businesses. And, that's significant. And when they shut us down during COVID, we lost a lot of businesses. I think the number was like 20,000, 25,000 or something. Businesses shut down. It was horrible to witness that. And, it was like, and you're looking at it, and I've been through a few recessions in life, because we've had those as time goes on. But, businesses, small businesses are amazing. We're entrepreneurs. It's in our blood to be entrepreneurs. And when you limit that ability, you limit our ability to grow. And I think as long as we're under their control, under their thumb, they're happy, they have power, they have money, they can do anything they want. Us, we just want freedom. We just want to be free. And I want my kids to be free. I want my grandkids to be free. And I'm going to do every damn thing I can to make sure it happens. And with your help and everybody else's help in Maine, again, if we don't win, we lose. And if we don't win, we can't get the things done that we want to get done. And it's so, so important. It's so important to win. And, you just look how they ran, this past legislators. What they've done, there's so many different bills that they've done that I look at like, how'd that even reach the table? How did it even get there? All right. Sanctuary state. Listen, I respect the rule of law. I had the opportunity to meet Chief Justice John Roberts last year, and he was a great guy to talk to. I mean, brilliant. I was amazed that here I am, this guy that barely got out of high school, and talking with one of the most intelligent individuals I think on the planet, and probably one of the most powerful people on the planet. And I came out of it unscathed. I had a good conversation and that I respect. And he said to me something that really resonated with me. He said, people think because I was supported by George W. Bush 19 years ago that I'm only going to support Republican things. He says, unfortunately, the law doesn't work that way. It's my job to enforce the law. And he said, so, sometimes it's going to go their way and sometimes it's going to go the other way. And I said, no matter what, you're going to have 50% of people like you, 50% of the people that hate you. And, he does a job. And no matter what you do, there's always going to be people that don't like you. And I get it. It's just people, for whatever reason, want to find fault. Look in the good that people do, whether it's me or anybody else. There's always some, people want to do good. I don't think anybody purposely,
most people aren't trying.
There are people out there. My granddaughter said something to me very intuitive. She goes, Papa, why are there bad guys in the world? And I said, oh, honey, there's always going to be bad guys in the world. And she said, well, why do you want to fight the bad guys? I said, well, why do you think I want to fight the bad guys? And she says, to make it a better place for me and all your other grandchildren. That was one of the reasons I ran. So she hit me right in the heart with that one. And I could still see the look on her face. And I was like, oh, geez, I guess I have to do this. Up until that conversation, I was not going to do it. But I'm here now. And I'd love to be your governor. I do what I can to, bring things into focus for anybody that wants things that make sense. If it's impractical, I'm sorry, I'm not for it. If it makes sense for the people, great. People and the state of Maine, they come first. And we can do this. And your efforts and being involved now, I applaud that. And I was very big in 2012, getting young people involved with the Ron Paulers. My son ran the Ron Paul's campaign in Colorado. David Boyer, who was my campaign manager. He ran the Maine with him and Eric Brakey. And, I was at the convention in 2012. You weren't around, but it was an interesting convention. And people still talk about it. Yeah, people still talk about it today. Because you know what? These young people went to the Leadership Institute. They studied the United States Constitution, the Maine Constitution. They understood the Roberts Rules. And they went in there and they commanded the day, right? Or the 3 days, actually. And it was great to see. Great to see these young men and women apply themselves. And, I want young people to be involved. Listen, my generation, for whatever reason, hasn't done a very good job. There's been a lot of things going on already since, we've been around. And we need to correct it. And with the help of all young people and all your social media skills and everything else that you bring to the table. Now AI, maybe we can do it. Maybe we can. I believe we can. But I do believe it's getting harder and harder and harder. How do you feel?
Well, I definitely think that it's challenging here in Maine, but I do think that there's hope. I think if we work together and really get out there, we need all hands on deck, though. Like in order, I think when I look at the different races, I would say when you look at the House in Maine, I think very winnable. I mean, we only lost by like 61 votes.
Yeah,
right.
I know
the House very winnable. Senate, it's going to be tough. There are a couple of key races that we absolutely have to win that are challenging areas, right? And then when it comes to the gubernatorial races, as I kind of mentioned, Trump didn't campaign here. There's things about Trump that, TDS that causes people to vote against him. But he was one of the best candidates in U.S. history, right? In terms of policy, right? Probably the best candidate in my lifetime in terms of policy. going against what I believe is the worst presidential candidate in U.S. history in Kamala Harris, and we still lost by 6.5%. We lost here in Maine by 6.5%. Again, Trump didn't campaign here, and there is that baggage, but like that's significant. So we've got a lot to overcome. I do think we can. We have to work hard. We have to get out there. We have to spread the message. We have to highlight all these areas where the Democrats are doing such a poor job and ruining our great state. But it's an uphill battle. It's going to be tough. And Rick Bennett, joining the race, the former Republican, in quotes, who is it's kind of funny. I don't know who I was talking to. I think it was on the radio on Monday about the fact that okay, if you're gonna as a Republican who's planning to run as an independent, if you want to pick a couple of areas where you want to side more with the Democrats in order to seem more nonpartisan or whatever, I probably don't choose the one where most of the Democrats agree with the Republicans, the Democrat voters, such as boys and girls sports. So what did he do? He voted in favor of boys and girls sports as his here, I'm more moderate. It's I don't know which Democrats you think are going to win. The Democrats who are,
I'm sorry.
Well, the Democrats who are in favor of that type of stuff are going to vote for a Democrat, most likely. So if you were going to try to play the middle, I don't think that was the issue to try to play the middle with. So I maybe he has a strategy. I don't know. Maybe it's just to take down the Republicans because some people know him and know he's been a Republican and might think an independent might do better. And I don't know. Well, time will tell, but you've got that element coming in. And how that impacts. So there's a lot of challenges. I think it's winnable. I think we can win, but I do think it's going to take a concerted effort. People are going to have to, spend money. They're going to have to give up of their time, energy, and effort. They're going to have to be courageous and publicly say things rather than, saying, I can't do that for the sake of my business. I get it. I understand what you're saying. But if we are afraid and we won't be open and honest about who we are, then I think, number one, we're cowards. Number two, guess what? Democrats don't do a lot of those jobs anyway. A lot of some of these trades jobs, you're not going to have to worry about losing some liberals coming in and scooping up your business because they don't generally do those jobs. But anyway, we need people to be more courageous and speak up, because if we don't do that, it's going to be really challenging. But I do think we have a chance. And I want to thank you for running. I think it takes a lot. It's not an easy thing to take on the task of running for any political office, especially one as big as governor, where you have to try to connect with so many people. You have to raise funds. You have to, come up with messaging and build all this stuff on top of everything else that you have to do, because you also have to, continue the other things that you're doing, because that's where your livelihood comes from. So I appreciate you taking the time running. Appreciate you taking the time, and we filled up almost 2 hours here today. So that's been great.
Really?
Yeah, we're just shy of 2 hours at the moment. So
wow, I had no idea. I enjoyed. I want to say one thing to other people out there right now that are considering about running for office, especially in our swing districts. Get me nominated as the Republican nominee. I will come and I will work with each and every one of you whenever I can to help you win that race. I think this is a team effort. This isn't just about David Jones being the governor. It's about you winning these individual races, us getting control of the House, getting a control of the Senate. I'm a very hardworking guy, but I work smart too. So if there's opportunities that once I become the candidate for Republican candidate for governor, then I will help you as much as I possibly can. It's a team effort. Let's work together. Let's win this. And if you want to reach me, I'll give you my website. It's my email is david@jones2026.com. The website is jones2026.com. My phone number is 207-650-3455. You can call me day or night, weekends, it doesn't matter. Like I said, if I don't answer, I will call you back. And I do appreciate the time, Chuck, being on your podcast. I can't believe we went through 2 hours here. Did we really?
Yeah.
Well, look,
1 hour, 59 minutes and 46 seconds.
Yeah, well, so this is a subject near and dear to our hearts. I mean, we care. Yeah. And I hope the people who are watching, obviously they care, or they wouldn't be watching it as well. And let's win this. We can do it. I really believe if ever there's a chance for us to do it, now's the time.
Definitely they've, again, as you said, the Democrats have given us a lot of material to work with to help us win. So we just need to capitalize on that. So yeah. So thanks again for coming on. Just remind some people I have another one of your likely competitors in the race is coming on tomorrow. He hasn't officially declared yet, but he's rumored to be one of the gubernatorial candidates, Jonathan Bush. Tomorrow afternoon will be on the podcast. Yeah, so for people who are interested in watching that, and so we'll see you there tomorrow. The other thing is, like, I've showed you some bumper stickers and stuff like that. We also have some Muddy Waters stickers that are kind of fun. And so if you want to go to muddywaters.us, you can pick up some of our merch, some fun stuff there. And support the podcast, which is something that I lose money on. So I'd like to lose less if possible. And kind of more importantly, I think using these things to like get the message out there and represent and be open about who you are and start conversation. That's a bigger thing, because I don't anticipate making money off of this. That's not the point. But it's a way to kind of, continue the conversation. So definitely go there. The Cumberland County Republican Committee has a couple of events coming up that should be mentioned. There is one next Tuesday called Justice and Jazz, where we're talking about really it's an event focused on free speech, where the Democrats have tried to shut us down. So go ahead and ccrcme.com and check out that event. So Justice and Jazz at the Orion Performing Arts Center in Topsom from 6 p.m. to 8 on July 15th, so a week from yesterday. So and then another event that we have coming up that I'm trying to get gubernatorial candidates at. I don't know if I've asked you yet, David. So if you can't make it, don't worry about it. But we're doing the Songo River Sip and Savor on the Songo River Queen on July 31st. It's a Thursday night from basically 5:30 to 8:30. The boat will actually be out on the water from 6 to 8, but we'll be on the boat from 5:30 to 8:30. And so we've got a couple of the gubernatorial candidates who have already committed: Jim Libby, Owen McCarthy, and Bobby Charles. And I think Carmen Calabrese, who's trying to run for U.S. Senate, has also said that he'll be there. And so love to have you there if you can make it, David. But everybody else, go again, ccrcme.com to check out those events. That's there's cost associated with $50 for a person, $90 for a couple, and comes with there are going to be some hors d'oeuvres, and then there's a cash bar. So if people are interested, so definitely come and check us out. It's a good fundraiser for the Cumberland County Committee. So we have some money to spend to help candidates win in 2026. So thanks again, Dave, and
I've enjoyed it immensely, and I might be able to make that on the 31st. So just make sure I clear with my campaign manager and see what else we got. But I think we'll be open on that one. Sounds like fun.
Awesome.
Sounds like a fun event. I'd love to meet the other two that are going to be there. I know, John. Who's going to be there?
So at that event, we're going to have Owen McCarthy and Jim Libby.
I haven't really met him, so
and Bobby Charles. So yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, it'll be fun. Be a good cruise.
Yeah.
Get to know the candidates, right? Find out who they are.
Absolutely. Just
ask
nice
them questions.
Casual cruise where you can have conversations with people. It's going to be a great time. So, all right. Well, thank you all. Thanks again, David. And we'll see you guys here tomorrow. And until then, have a great day.
Take care.